Welcome everybody, my name is MrLlama and today I am bringing you an Inside the Minds of Masters, I apologize, ZvZ between Stephano and MrLlamaSC. This is the IPL 4 match, as I'm sure some of you have already realized, and this was in the winners round. So between these two players, and I actually want to follow Stephano in this game because I think he just kind of made some better decisions in this game. And I mean, both players played extremely well, of course. And if I did, I could just watch either player and really give great commentary here. But I'm going to go ahead and choose to follow Stephano, as I think he does end up winning this game as well. In fact, I don't think, I know he does. So the end decisions are a little bit more in his favor. So it looks like, yes, good luck, have fun, MrLlamaSC. And MrLlamaSC is IPL Observer D. So I guess that's the name that he was playing under, but yeah, that is MrLlamaSC and Stephano there. So big thing about ZvZ is the matchup can be extremely difficult because Zergs don't really have the best defensive holding mechanism. So we don't really have a siege unit besides tier 3 Broodlords. There's no like walls that you can really build. I mean, you actually can, build a wall if you get your creep over here. I've definitely seen that before, where a guy completely just built a wall right there. But yeah, so there's not like a lot of wall off. There's no real like range, like early unit like that, like the Marine or cannons. So it's just there's no real great sim city that you can use against a Zerg, as a Zerg at least, or it's a little bit more difficult to get out. So the matchup plays out a lot differently than other matchups. I know a lot of Zerg players have trouble with this, playing ZvZs and stuff. So it looks like Stephano is going to open with a 14-14. Notice that he got that 14th gas immediately. When he got that 14 supply, he went ahead and jumped right on that gas. And by doing this, this will allow him to, of course, get the 100 gas out so he can get his speed built immediately. So some players will like delay that. They'll be like 14-14, then they'll get that gas like 150 minerals, like right next to 15. And notice right here already, boom, we see a spine crawler going down, no lings around it, and so he sends out 5 drones. He actually had about 8 or 9 drones selected to go out there. That was overkill, and so he sent some of those drones back. But important, get out there and kill off that spine crawler as quickly as you can. If there's already some lings around it, just pool more of your drones. Because that means he, of course, if he already has lings in your base, he's doing some sort of early 6 pool. So right now, if we look, he's going to continue making these lings. As you saw, more lings streaming in. There's already 4 in his base, plus 2 more. So there's 8 lings at least out on the base right now for MrLlamaSC that Stephano knows of. He's going to be fine because he has this nice little... I mean, he's got these drones. He has his lings right there. His queen's popping out. So he's going to be able to force back his opponent. But he has to make these lings to be safe, to be sure that there's not more lings streaming in. And notice also that he starts a second queen immediately. This is to get the wall off in case that his opponent is going to be going for some all-in. And look, right there, instantly back on gas. So I want to actually back that up and go right through that again because I think that's really important. Let's see, is this when the Overlord sees it? So right now, not on gas, not on gas, not on gas. Stephano sees no hatch, and what does he do? Instantly throws 3 guys on gas. This is because now he's preparing for some sort of one-base all-in. He says, you know what, okay, my opponent hasn't expanded yet. He's not gone for an 18. I believe you get an 18 hatch if you go for a 10 pool, like MrLlamaSC did. So that was a 10 pool, by the way, that MrLlamaSC did. And so... he just tried to sneak that spine crawl in there. Didn't work. Okay, MrLlamaSC's not in a bad position off that 10 pool because now he has the lings that he can be aggressive with, 4 slings, then he can drone behind it, and he can take that at an 18. He also has an earlier queen. Now, really quickly, I do want to pause right here. So he got it back on gas so he could get down a Baneling Nest. This, of course, is to defend against any sort of all-in. And he's also sending his lings over here. But why is he expanding? This is kind of a question that a lot of people would say. They'd be like, but his opponent could be one base all-inning him. Why is he taking this expansion? Well, the reason he's taking this expansion is because he needs to catch back up on larva. Right now, his opponent had that earlier queen. Because he went for a 10 pool instead of the 14 pool that Stephano went, Stephano's going to have that earlier speed. Since he did get that gas and stuff like that, and he will be able to see here his speed finishes before his opponent's, and a decent amount of time too if you look. So MrLlamaSC could have had a slightly earlier speed, but he had that earlier queen, which means he has earlier larva injects, and he also only made those 8 lings that he sent at Stephano. So Stephano countered with, I believe, 8 lings as well, but that puts them at an even point on that, and so now we're going to see that MrLlamaSC actually has the drone count lead And this is simply because that he had that earlier queen, so he has the earlier larva. So how do you counter this as Stephano? What you do is you make this hatch down here. This will give you the more larva, plus he already has the second queen. And since his opponent is now taking a hatch as well, he can be like, okay, this isn't a crazy delayed all-in or anything like that. So now he can feel safer. He can take an expansion of his own, and so now he's injecting off of 2 expansions, and he's going to be able to catch up in that larva and catch back up in that drone count, as you can see, which he is still below, because this hasn't been any pops off of this yet. So going to continue scouting out here around, just checking for, you know, if there's more mass lings, if there's any roach attack or anything that he can see like that. And because he gets in there and he scouts that expansion, he scouts everything like that, and he had extra gas right there, by the way, never mind, he is on 3, and he had extra gas, he's going to go ahead and get started on his +1 attack upgrade right now. And this is simply because, hey, I have extra gas, and I know that I'm not getting all in. What am I going to do? I don't want to tech up to lair immediately. I mean, if he wanted to, he could tech to lair and then get like these extractors and go for Muta. That's a possibility. But instead, what's he going to do with his extra gas? He's going to go ahead and start his upgrades a little earlier so he can have that upgrade advantage, which is always nice to have in this matchup, since every little detail counts. So now it's just scouting back and forth between the 2 players, checking unit counts, and I want you to note where his banelings are positioned right now. This is to deny any sort of scouting right here. So Ling's trying to get up into the base, and no. They're not going to. So you know what? Maybe there is something sneaky going on up here, but we're not going to let him see that. Maybe there's a lair being morphed. He's not going to be able to see what exactly is going on right there. And by he, I mean Nest-T. And so now Stephano feels pretty good, and he's actually going to be expanding. But I want to note as well that behind this expansion, he is scouting once again. So you know what? He's going to send his lings over here to his opponent's base just to check. Is there some sort of mass amount of roaches where I need to cancel that and throw up 5 spines? And we scout 4 roaches. We scout through a lot of drones, saturating that right there. If you look, drone count actually fairly even. He just got ahead. So you know what? He says, you know what? I see all these drones. I know that I'm not getting like 20 drones, and the guy has like 25 roaches, and he's going to all-in me right now. So he takes this third, and he feels safe that he can now keep this third, and it's actually just, you know, about 6 seconds ahead of his opponent. So they both take that right there. As well, with those scouting lings, not only was he able to scout for the roaches, but mainly he was able to scout these extractors up here. Always take note of the extractors. You want to get in there and say, hey, does he have all these extractors? If he does, he's probably going something very gas intensive. He's probably already has a lair up or a lair almost finished, and he's probably going to be going Spire or Infestors. So that's something that you definitely want to note. And now he can check in here and as well see that there's a third going up, and about the same time as his, so he doesn't feel too bad right here. So one mistake that I feel Stephano makes right here, if you notice he's behind in the worker count, 46 to 39, is that Stephano, he snuck in there and he saw about 6 roaches. And Stephano kind of uses this and tries to make an attack. I mean, you can't blame the guy for trying to attack. But right now, I think you could have droned instead of making all these additional lings. I think this definitely puts Stephano behind. So he gets in here and he sees, hey, not too many units, got that spine crawler, got that queen. I'm going to go ahead and attack. But more roaches come down the ramp, and he's already made a lot. I mean, he's getting lair, so that's good at least. But he invested in all those lings right there because he wanted to attack. And so now he's finally going to drone, but I think those 14 lings that he made right there actually did cost him a lot. So he's going to try and continue this pressure. And I mean, this could be, you know, decent game-ending pressure right here, actually. If Nest-T didn't have additional reinforcements streaming down right there. And so it's good that he was able to force all these units out of Nest-T, but I think he would have been in a better position if he pushed up here, ran up to that third, pretended to attack while he droned, and then just completely backed out all the way back to his base. This would have made Nest-T force all of those roaches to pop out like he did, and then Stephano could have taken an even greater harvester lead, which, as you can see, he really doesn't have. I mean, it bounces back and forth between the two, but he doesn't. So if you look, there we go, 52, and he's going to have 7 more drones, 11 more for Nest-T, while 4 are only on the way right here for Stephano. So Stephano definitely falls behind right here, and that's simply because he was investing in that army, and he lost that whole army pretty much as well. He carried back a few of it, but he basically could have kept that whole army and forced all those units out of his opponent, and then put the ball in Nest-T's court and said, you know what, your turn to make a move, go for it. So I also want you to note that the timing of this lair was so late. It didn't finish till like 11 minutes something. He already had a third up. So many players just try and rush their tech. They're like, well, time to move up. I need to get some roach speed and some burrow, and I'm just going to go for some crazy stuff like, and they'll just like be on 2 bases with like 32 drones, and they'll already have a lair and like 3 gases, and they're going roach play, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, that's not what you want to be doing there. If you are, you're going to have to definitely do something with all of that you have. But notice how like they transition throughout the game here. They don't even have infestors out yet. They aren't trying to force infestors out simply because that would put them in too bad of a position in this game. So if they force infestors, and once again, let's look at the harvester count. He's finally started to catch up, but Nest's still ahead, especially with all that money banked right there. And supply a little bit ahead. I'd say Nest's definitely a little ahead. But yeah, so what was I saying? I was saying, yeah, teching too quickly. Like, notice their transitions. They're nice and slow, but they're appropriate with the game pace. They're appropriate with, okay, I scout my opponent. I see he's not going all in. I'm just going to expand, get a few more drones. I'm going to then tech up when necessary, not go too crazy with my Roach Warren, whatever. So Stephano knows he's behind right now. And so this is why he's pushing over here, because he knows, hey, you know what? I know I've been behind because that attack right there failed. So I know my opponent drone behind it. As you can see, he's still droned ahead. And as well, he's got the supply lead. He's got Hydras on the way. And so now Stephano has to do something to punish his opponent. He's going to have to make some sort of move right here. Or get greedy and take a 4th and be allowed to take a 4th or something and let it pay off, which he wouldn't really be able to. Nesty would punish him too much for that. Or get out like infestors or something like that. And so he would have to make some sort of greedy play, and Nesty could just attack right now and punch him if you look at the supplies. But the beautiful thing that he does right here is his splitting, and I want to actually go to his EPM just because it's ridiculous. So by doing this, he's able to push in here, have a larger army actually right here, and he has the upgrade advantage as well as of 2-1 over 1-1, and then sneak in here as well and pick off queens, pick off drones, and then continue over here. And when have you had 500 EPM? I don't think ever. 530. But yeah, so now you can continue to just pressure on multiple fronts right here, and you're sitting there saying, oh, well, that didn't do a crazy amount of damage. But he was able to pick off queens, which are so crucial, because that, of course, is all of your injects right there. So he's going to run out of larva in a tiny bit here. When he's trying to remake units, he's not going to have the larva that Stephano will. And they both have taken Macarettes as well, important to do, but of course don't rush it. So now he's going to back out, regather himself, get these Lings out, and those are simply as tank ability. So just something that you can kind of have so everything will attack. So when he does all this stuff, see all of the Roaches and Hydras attacking his Lings, this is very good to do. So don't be afraid to throw some Lings in there with your army simply to tank the damage. So now he's going to have to once again knows he has to do something. He's still behind, right? So he's still trying to push in. He still has that upgrade lead, I believe. Nope, he's lost actually now. But now he does yet another beautiful split. And I want you to note what he does with the split. Sends this part up here, and there's a lot of open Hydras there that he can hit. And what does he do here? He focuses down drones. And he is simply going, he's doing hold position with those Lings, he's going after all the drones right there, and you can just watch. That was at 72, and now as well he's killing over here. Drones had to be pulled over here because he sent too much army in here to defend. And so Stephano able to actually come out way ahead here, kills off drones, kills off queens, and now his opponent is at 25 drones. What does he do? He simply backs out and says, you know what, the game is over as long as I can stall and delay and defend this final push. So this final Roach Hydra push, that's all Nesty is going to have. That's it. So if I can defend this, I'll be fine. So that's exactly what he does. He just kind of backs up, waits right here, makes more Roaches, makes more Lings, etc. Just trying to defend this. And Nesta is basically on the clock because it's basically, do I drone or do I build an army? And so he's going to have to either, drone or build an army, and he doesn't have the larva for it either because he's lost his queens. And so now Stephano's in good position, able to get a decent concave right there on that army. And pretty much break it down for the most part. And then he can, of course, just back off, rebuild whenever he feels necessary, such as now his opponent's starting to win that battle again. Hydra's a great DPS unit. So he can back up to that Spine Crawler, which, isn't a huge help, but it's something, you know. And Basically, yeah. So basically, at this point, the game is over as long as he holds this push, because his opponent doesn't have the income to support continuing to fight. And so now he realizes that. He says, you know what, I have to drone, and just hope Stephano backs off, hope Stephano doesn't attack me, anything like that. And basically, Stephano can just be like, alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and attack you now, and just continue to clean you up, because I know you have no drones. And that's GG right there. So that's simply going to be that game. Things that I want to kind of look back and point out. First, starting off, sniping that spine crawler. Pool the drones to snipe it. I know so many people will be like sitting there and they're like, oh no, and they'll wait for their pool to finish and then try and like put a spine crawler up in their mineral line, and then the lings will start to stream in, more and more and more lings, and then there's like a critical amount of lings that's just greater than what their drones and lings can handle, and they have the spine picking away at the spawning pool. And it's like, you could have just stopped that a lot earlier by pulling those 5 drones and killing it. As I was saying, if there were more lings there, then it would be like 6 pull, 8 pull, something like that. Probably 6 pull if there were lings already around that. Then you can pull more drones. So literally, like, you can pull almost all your drones at that point. And just go over there, and 6 lings will not be able to fight against like 14 drones. They'll lose straight up. So you can just go straight at that, send 4 of those drones to kill a spine crawler, and the rest of the drones to chase after the lings. Once you fend that off, you win the game. So Stephano just handled that very nicely. Got his hatchery down. Got back on gas, I should say. I want to go to that first. Got back on gas so he could get a Baneling Nest down when he scouted no expansion. If he had scouted an expansion, you wouldn't have seen him get back on gas like that. You would have seen him probably just expand himself instead of doing that. But no, instead he went ahead and got back on gas because his opponent didn't expand. So he had to prepare for an all-in, some sort of ling bling all-in, something like that. And then he took an expansion after that. Once he had his Baneling Nest ready and he could make Banelings to defend with, then he took his expansion because he needed to catch back up, because his opponent was ahead in drones since he had the earlier larva from that queen, from the earlier queen that he had. Just scouting very safely and stuff like that. So when he took his third, he scouted in for the all-in, scouted for these gases. You always want to know what your opponent's going. These are the most, like, one of the most crucial things to scout for in the Zerg vs. Zerg matchup. At that point in the game. So once expansions have been taken, and it's been like a couple minutes of those, just get in there and scout these gases, and continually just try and scout them as best as you can. Because if he doesn't have them, he's going roach. That's like almost a guarantee. Or mass lings, I suppose he could be going. But then if you're going a lot of roaches, you should be fine. And if you have a few banelings anyways back at your base. But yeah, so you want to scout this, and if you see double gas taken really fast, expect an early lair, expect early infestors. One of those 2 is definitely going to be coming out. But he didn't see that, and so he himself didn't rush for that either. He could have gone for Muta if he wanted, but he decided not to. Instead, he opted for the fast third. Kept his economy pumping and stuff. Nest T was able to slightly get ahead because he kept droning, and then the big thing, I think, was when Stephano went for that fight right in there. At that one point, he kind of snuck in and tried to go for a game ender. Somewhat, and that kind of put him in a bad position. And it wasn't like a crazy game ender. He did end up droning behind it once he saw more roaches being produced, but it was already kind of like the damage had been done because he'd made like 14 zerglings plus I think a few roaches, and that was like 10 larvae worth of drones that he lost, which then slowly put him behind. And I also want to note that right after that attack, right here, I think here's the attack. So we're going to speed through it. Okay, yeah, that was it. Ah. I want to note, right after that attack, Stephano's droning, yada, 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 and boom, roaches popping out. All of a sudden, Stephano has to make roaches. More roaches, right? Because he doesn't know what else is coming behind this. He's like, oh crap, so he's just massing roaches. What does Nesty do? Nesty gets right there and he backs out. And all of a sudden, Stephano now has 12 more roaches that could have been drones, and he could have pumped himself into the lead with the harvesters, but instead he wasn't able to, and this allows him to tech behind it now. Now he's like, okay, you know, blah, 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 like, now, and he can also drone right there. So he forced roaches out of Stephano, which was a beautiful play by NST. And that was one of the slightest things ever. It was simply, hey, I'm just pooling my roaches out here. I bring them to the middle so you see them in mass roaches. And then I'm just going to simply move my roaches back. Like, do things like that. And that's what I'm saying I wish Stephano did before. I wish he ran his units in here, snuck those lings up right there, pulled them back, gone with the roaches in, and then just backed out. And all of a sudden, NST has like 15 roaches on the way to try and defend this crazy all-in that he thinks is coming from Stephano, or a timing attack by Stephano. And then Stephano's got 12 more drones back at home. So that's going to be my analysis here for the ZvZ between Stephano and NST. And I definitely want to say that, I mean, that was just some of the most beautiful, like, splitting and micro ever by Stephano, splitting up, going into the main, and then attacking at the third, taking out all those drones. He killed off like 50 drones, 63 drones. So, I mean, that's just nuts. That's just completely insane. To 0 drone kills too, so very impressive. But yeah, so that's just completely insane by Stephano. But he had to do something right there. If he did not do anything right there, he would have lost, because his opponent would have masked up that Roach Hydra and then could have just pushed at his base, and Stephano wouldn't be able to hold that. The Hydras had way too much damage, way too much DPS. So he hit when he had the upgraded advantage, and he was able to win the game.